Howdy! Today's video will be a continuation of the set review for the Bloomburrow Alchemy release. In last video, we covered all monocolored rares in the set, so if you missed it, now's your chance to go back and watch that. I have a lot of cool cards to talk about today, and a little bit of experience on the ladder to give more insight into the cards and how they perform. So without further ado, let's jump in. Ace Flockbringer is a 3-mana 3/3 Azorius bird scout creature that has flying in the text. Whenever you cast a creature spell without flying, conjure a duplicate of it into your hand. The duplicate perpetually gains flying. This ability triggers only once each turn. Ace Flockbringer seems very strong, giving you duplicates of any non-flyer creature you control, and is unbelievable card advantage. Additionally, you get added evasion on the creatures that are conjured into your hand. So if there are any creatures that you will need to swing into and survive, this may enable that. Some nice cards to combo this creature with could be an Emporium Thopterist or a Landlord Navigator. These 2-cost creatures could be an easy turn 4 play with Ace Flockbringer on the battlefield. Getting 2 Emporium Thopterists on turn 4 makes all your Thopters 4/2s. Additionally, 2 Landlord Navigators can swing in and each make a Thieving Magpie on your end step with the triggers from its second ability. You can apply this mindset to any strong value producing 2-drop you want, or just create additional card advantage with any non-flyer you have. Because of its added value, potential strong turn 4 enablers, and its reasonably strong body, I'll give this card a 7 on the hot dog meter. Moving on, we have Darkstar Banisher, which is a 3-mana 2/2 Orzhov Bat Cleric creature with flying. When Darkstar Banisher enters, you exile a non-land permanent with mana value 3 or less an opponent controls. When it leaves the battlefield, the exiled card's owner seeks a card that shares a card type with the exiled card. Darkstar Banisher is pretty good. It brings comparisons to Skyclave Apparition, which is a very strong white 3-drop that exiles a permanent with mana 4 or less. When it leaves the controller, it creates an XX illusion where X is the mana value of the exiled card. It might be too early to tell, but Darkstar Banisher seems a little worse than the Apparition. Not only does it not target 4 CMC cards, it also allows the controller to seek a card of the same type, which seems a bit stronger than an illusion that is anywhere from a 1/1 to a 4/4. The thing this card has going for it is that it fits well into a bat deck. It also has added value as a strong 3-drop that Sorreline can pull out of the graveyard. This card also counters the current alchemy format decently well. Playing in the top 100 of the ladder, you rarely see cards over CMC 4. So I actually played a session the other day and I had 13 games in a row of mono red mice or rabbit convoke. So something like this will almost always have a nice target and get some value slowing the opponent down, because you're going to see those decks a lot in the upcoming format. However, it does feel bad to use it as removal on a convoke creature, only to give them another creature upon its death. So because of that, I give this card 6 hot dogs. Thought Rattle is a 2-mana Dimir sorcery that allows you to choose a non-land card in your opponent's hand and exile it. It also has the added bonus of giving you a free seek on a rat card if you reach the threshold of having 7 or more cards in your graveyard. That spell also costs 1 less to cast in the future. I haven't seen any rats in Alchemy at all, but I'll definitely be brewing with this card. It's essentially an on-rate Thoughtseize with an exile effect for Alchemy, with slightly more difficult mana symbols. Think Cruel Claw's Heist, but only this card gives you the added benefit of potentially getting a free seek of a rat card in your deck. If your opponent has no cards in hand, this card also doesn't lose all its value, as you can basically cycle it for a rat card. If you run this card, you should probably throw it in a rat deck, or even just put it in there as a Dimir control deck with a few friends to tutor out. If there's ever a huge build around rat card in Alchemy, then maybe this card could pair with that as a late game tutor or something, but all in all, I think that there's not much reason to not play this in a Dimir control deck. The card may not always have the added threshold benefit, but it clearly beats out cards without it. You can pay for the mana cost. Because of this, I give it a solid 7 dogs. So next up is the Izzet Bomb Indris, the Hydrostatic Surge. Indris is a 6-mana 5/5 Otter Incarnation creature with the text, when Indris the Hydrostatic Surge enters, conjure a card named Lightning Bolt into your library. It perpetually gains Storm. Pretty cool. Then Shuffle. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you can draw a card. So this card could have so much potential, but I feel like it might be too slow and not have enough value for its high CMC, especially in a color that's usually pretty low to the ground like Izzet. There's 3 Bloomburrow Alchemy Storm cards, and all of them are mid to high CMC. Wizards is clearly trying to push this archetype, but all the cards seem a bit slow, and there aren't enough cantrips in the format to bring these decks together. One way I might try to brew around this card is with an Izzet control deck using one of my favorite cards, Ill-Timed Explosion, and the new Planeswalker, Rawl the Crackling Wit. I think people are a bit scared to build decks from these cards though, because aggro is so hard to slow down now, and they're probably correct for not doing so in all honesty. Other than the card draw, the card seems kind of bad. The lightning bolt might just be a pipe dream. Maybe if they conjured 4 into your deck, I could make a case for this card. I give it a 4 out of 10 hot dog, solely because I think it could be a fun build around, but don't think it's going to be very good. Up next, we have Marshland Hordemaster, which is a 3-mana 2/4 Rakdos Lizard Warlock, which has the text, whenever Marshland Hordemaster, another lizard you control, enters, Marshland Hordemaster perpetually gains Battle Cry. When Marshland Hordemaster, another lizard you control, dies, target opponent loses 1 life, and you gain 1 life. So this card seems kind of gas. I haven't seen any lizard decks yet but if Battle Cry stacks on each other, then playing 3 or 4 lizards will essentially buff them all +4/+0 when you attack, which is pretty decent. And any that get removed will drain your opponent. You're going to want to play this deck with something like a Flame Catch Gecko, though, which can build a big board of lizards fast. One thing to note about this card is that when a lizard dies, your opponent loses 1 life. It doesn't deal damage, so it won't work in conjunction with the Valley Flamecaller's ability, which has to do with dealing damage. Seems pretty decent. Don't know how strong lizards will generally be, though, so I'll give it a 6 hot dogs out of 10. So next up, we have an absolute beast of a card. I'm just kidding. This card blows. This is a Dazzling Flameweaver. It's a 4-mana 4/4 Rakdos Lizard Warlock, which has Menace and Ward. Pay 3 life. It also has a text whenever 1 or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player. Conjure a random card from Dazzling Flameweaver's spellbook into exile. You may play that card this turn. This card has pretty good design, as it revives the Spectacle mechanic in all of its conjured cards, which allows you to cast your card for an alternative mana cost if you've dealt damage this turn, which you always will if you're conjuring that card this turn. Unfortunately, this card seems like absolute trash. This might be my pick for the worst card in all of Bloomburrow Alchemy, maybe all of Bloomburrow. A 4-mana 4/4 seems pretty on rate, but beat by several other creatures. Additionally, its conjured cards are lackluster, playable at best. The thing that makes this card difficult to play is it doesn't provide any immediate value and has a contingency of dealing combat damage on it being valuable. It also has way too slow for the current format. I would love to be proved wrong, and I hate to say this, but I give it 2 hot dogs out of 10. Uru, Acorn Scrounger, is a 4-mana 3/3 Golgari Legend Squirrel Soldier creature with the text, when Uru enters, you may forge. When you do, conjure a card named Chitterspitter onto the battlefield. Whenever 1 or more squirrels you control deal combat damage to a player, you may sacrifice a token. If you do, put an acorn counter on each permanent you control named Chitterspitter. Chitterspitter is an artifact that allows you to sacrifice a token at your upkeep and put an acorn counter on it. Squirrels get +1/+1 for each acorn counter on it. It also allows you to pay a green and tap it to create a 1/1 green squirrel token. So if you I actually love the squirrel food archetype. It seems like a nice little value engine. I don't know how strong it is yet, but I have a medium to high hopes for it, being a small player in the ladder. Comboing it with other powerful squirrel cards like Camellia the Seed Miser and food producers like Vine Reap Mentor, you could create a nice little squirrel engine that gets big relatively fast with all the other squirrel counters. I haven't seen any gameplay with this card yet, so I can't give you any more insight, but I speculate that this card gets a 5 out of 10 on the hot dog meter. Resourceful Collector is a 3-mana Gruul 3/3 Raccoon Druid creature with haste, and at the beginning of your end step, a random non-food permanent card in your graveyard perpetually becomes a food artifact in addition to its other types, and gains pay 2 colorless mana, exile this artifact, and you gain 3 life. You may play that card for as long as it's in your graveyard. This card is so gas. Allowing you to reanimate a permanent card at random from your graveyard for its mana cost is such a good value. It combos super well with Fabled Passage, as you will always have that in your graveyard, and you can play it as an extra land drop once for free, and then exile it from your graveyard for 3 life if you need it. This card also combos with graveyard fillers very well, like Propagator Primordium. Essentially, every turn it survives, you get to recur something, giving you a card and board advantage. One note for this card is that the card cannot be brought back from the graveyard over and over after the Resourceful Collector has given it the food artifact text. It can only be brought back once. Even more unfortunate for this card, after playtesting it, it doesn't play well in Gruul deck in this format because Gruul doesn't have any viable sweepers at the moment and tends to get bowled over by prowess cards. I think that this card could have home in Jund, Naya, or maybe even Temur, and I think it has so much potential in the right shell. I just haven't found it yet. I'll give it a hopeful 7 hot dogs. Alright, we've arrived. Even at first glance, this card seems so unbelievably strong, nimble, and grossly overpowered, and it lives up to that. Mice did not need this card at all, but they got it. We'll be seeing this card for a long time unless they get some nerf from Wizards. Recruit Instructor is a 2-mana Boros 1/1 Mouse Warrior creature token, which has the text, whenever one or more mice you control attack, draft a card from Recruit Instructor's spellbook. It also has Valiant. Whenever a Recruit Instructor becomes a target of a spell or ability you control for the first time each turn, create a 1/1 white mouse creature token. All the cards in his spellbook are some type of combat trick or enchantment effect. This card is beyond busted. The amount of value you get for 2 mana is simply unbeatable by any 2 or even 3 drop creature in the format. The fact that all you need to do is conjure a combat trick is just attack with a mice, and one of the combat tricks is an Embercleave, by the way, is just crazy. Mice already had a strong place in the meta, but now I've seen 60 to 70% mice decks in all my games. This could get old pretty fast, so I think that Wizard will have to nerf the card at some point, or every non-aggro deck will have to be stocked to the brim with removal to survive the best of ones. As for how to use it, you want to drop a one-drop mouse like Heartfire Hero to trigger its first ability on turn 2 and get some card advantage. After that, targeting with a cheap spell or ability each turn will give you enough board presence to likely outlast targeted removal. Again, this card is crazy and tier 1 meta defining, so it gets the prize of 10 dogs for this set. Congrats. So we have runner-up for the best card in the set in Buxton Decorated Host. Buxton Decorated Host is an incredibly powerful 5-mana Selesnya 4/4 Rabbit Noble with Convoke and the text. At the beginning of your end step, if you control a tapped creature, so you can non-land permanent card with mana value X or less, where X is the number of tapped creatures you control. Put that card into the battlefield. So this card is a potential turn 3 2-drop a creature from your deck onto the battlefield until it is removed, which it convoked is unbelievably valuable. It already has seen tons of play and is thrown right into the Rabbit tribal decks, along with the Amars that create a really heavy hitting and resilient deck that may only be beat in efficiency and win percentage by mice. I'm not sure yet, but it seems like Heist might have been power crept out of the format, as these decks are far too nimble to set up against and don't provide enough individual value to Heist from. With all that said, I give Buxton a very strong 9 out of 10 hot dogs for contributing to the aggro takeover. Last but certainly not least for our multicolored rares is Leaf Leap Guide. Leaf Leap Guide is a 2-mana Simic 1/1 Frog Scout with Vigilance, which has the text whenever another creature you control enters. Leaf Leap Guide and that creature perpetually get +1/+1 and has pay 1 and tap, return another target creature you control to its owner's hand. This is a really cool card. It's a static buff to any creature you play and can also grow as huge as long as you have enough creatures. They don't even have to be non-token creatures, so it's strong in that way as well. This card's pretty strong. I do think that frogs are a bit underpowered compared to other archetypes, and this could be something that helps get them back in the game. The question is whether or not something like this can compete in the new aggro meta. That is yet to be seen, but I hope to see some cool new frogs running around that bounce something like Sunshower Druid over and over again to give Leaf Leap Guide +2/+2 for each iteration of bouncing. I'll also note that its second ability is a strictly better version of Dowerport Mages at 1 mana cheaper, so it can be played alongside or replace that card in the frog decks, depending on what you go for, you know. So I have high hopes for this card to be played in frogs and hopefully other token or flicker decks. I'll give it an 8 out of 10 on the hot dog meter. Alrighty, thank you for watching my Bloomburrow Alchemy Set review. Please let me know in the comments if you enjoyed this type of video, as it took a great deal of time to make. Also leave some comments as to what I can improve, or what you'd like to see in the future. Some honorable mentions from the uncommon cards that I've seen used to great effect are Chittering Skull Speaker and Cottontail Caretaker. Don't let the rarity confuse you here, these two are very strong cards. As for my channel, if you have a few moments, please take a second to like and subscribe if you haven't, and I'll be playing these cards on my streams on Twitch and YouTube. I'm still establishing a streaming schedule for now, but if you manage to catch it, stop by and stay high. I'll be making some more gameplay and deck tech videos of cool competitive brews we play on stream, so make sure to catch those as well. Thanks for watching, and arrivederci.